Greetings. Okay, so today in this episode of reading from the Parinama method, we're going to get into the techniques and exercises for the fifth hub. I have a little music in the background. I'm trying to figure out how to make that kind of fit with my not. Hold on, let me mess around here a bit. Okay, hey. So yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out like what the right level is for. But anyway, so we're going to talk about techniques and exercises for the fifth hub. And coming into this, I was thinking a bit, when it's, as I mentioned before, this is the first time I'm reading and practicing the book like a person who would read it and practice from it. And just making observations. And one of them has been that I feel like in this hub, and this might be, I don't know if this music's gonna work. It's feels a little too extra, honestly. I'm gonna turn it off. We'll see. One of the things that I've been noticing is that I don't feel like this chapter is, let's see, like there's kind of a cohesiveness in it. Like when I'm contemplating it, I'm thinking about the fact that it's, first of all, it's like a shorter chapter, and um but also that a lot of, what I'm starting to understand happens in this practice is the kind of like what I'd consider almost like a passive effect of introducing these concepts and letting them kind of just like cook a little bit. It's like leaving the stove on, they kind of cook, and then like using tools and letting the stuff arise that's like really unique to your experience, and having that happen. So I guess one of the things, I have not read the techniques and exercises ahead of time. So maybe this will bring it all together. I'm not sure that it will. But because there really is something here that this is like a meeting of a number of reconciliations. And I think this is also speaks to that this process is, the idea of trying to like reach any goals or achieve something is pretty, let's see, it's not what we're doing. So it's just the expanding into infinity, so to speak. So it's finding the expansion and the opening and the capacity to have access to more aliveness. And that, it's kind of like, is the juice worth the squeeze, is making the decision about whether coming into this like space, like is yeah, like whether it's, whether this is part of it or not. And I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. I don't think I am. But anyway, so I'm going to just get into this. I'm going to see how this goes. So with the techniques and exercises. So here's the so for each of the techniques and exercises section, there's a picture of the gingerbread person. And a couple of the prompts, which are just kind of to tune into the particular hub. And one is, so, I think I read through these yesterday, but I'll do them again here, is to relax and wiggle the jaw. So one thing to check in here is, so teeth grinding. One of the things, there is no charge and discharge, I think. I remember this. There's no physical charge and discharge in the muscular. There's no muscular, because the ones that are traditionally used are like biting down on pencils and like jaw stuff, which is like squeezing in, which I don't really feel like great about as far as like just potentially damaging your teeth and stuff like that. Um, but just bringing attention to the relative tension in your jaw. And, I think there's like this thing that we can tend to do, which is to say, like, it's just tense. I'm just getting older, versus considering that we're backing up, like not discharging, not processing, and even like working outside of our like of a capacity that we're not actively expanding. So it's like a tight jaw. A baby isn't born with a tight jaw, and it's all, and this thing of like, yeah, well, nobody knows what aging is. It's like, well, yeah, yes, and so it's like in the tight jaw is like, the mix of a physical exploration for that, with like massage, which is the, pull on your drums, your earlobes rather, pull on your eardrums. It's pretty invasive. And massage your jaw here. Um, but to like use like the fuck you journaling and use processing to be like, what is stuck? Like, what is the thing that you're holding back from saying? If there is anything, if you're like, nope, I just have a tense jaw, it's like, cool. But to to like investigate this, to think like, is there something that I'm not saying? And this can be, kind of like uncorking even, like lower hub stuff, because most of the time we're expressing things related to our lived experience that's stored in the lower hub. So there's that whole thing. But the physical connection to that and noticing. I mean, sometimes, it's like our cognition has just such advanced ways of like positioning, repositioning to serve our like belief system that it'll just keep shifting enough that it's hard to really like reach into what the actual phenomenon is. And it's like the body keeps the score, is that it's like the one thing that remains consistent is the body's calculation of like what's actually going on. So, and once again, this is kind of a, a shout out to using all facets of this practice together, because if we do not honor and respect the role of our cognition, our cognitive, our thinking, if we do not respect the role of our emotion, if we do not respect the role of our reflex, the one that gets left behind will actually, really like speak up and actually, and self-sabotage, so to speak. So, and respecting what it's trying to do, like that's another thing, which is respecting what each of these facets is um kind of like tasked to do. Where was I going with this? Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's so, so it's looking at, yeah, so in, rolling the neck, be really gentle with this. Don't, it doesn't need to be like ear to the shoulder kind of stuff, find a little like crunchy. Another thing too is just, once you start to be able to access like the movement in the body, is just finding kind of organically arising movements, that like just like releasing the jaw, like whatever kind of arises, and just staying tuned into the sensation of it, not just jerking it around so it like becomes like potentially causes like pain or whatever, but kind of like finding some of that as well. There is a bit more as far as like even just putting on music and just kind of moving your body to it, and just in whatever way arises, without like thinking like, does this look cool, or being self-conscious. Like one of the things about being self-conscious about dancing and being like, I look stupid when I do it, is that it's kind of let's see, the self-consciousness is what makes it uncool. Like the thing is to like really like find the movement inside of yourself and have it emanate from there, as kind of like its own charisma and its own thing. So all right, So, yeah, look, one thing I'll say is that I'm still in this a little bit of this, like, kind of, articulation slump, which is, hormonally based, but, just keep on trucking here, see how this goes. So, okay, so I'm gonna read this. This is page 205, and this is the beginning of the techniques and exercises. So, the physical location of the 5th hub is in the neck, the jaw, the chin, lips, tongue, roof of mouth, ears, and then the use of shoulders and hands. Hands are instruments of communication and creative expression and are used to enhance verbal communication. Some studies have shown that gesticulating can help us think. So sign languages are profoundly somatic styles of communication that yoke physical movement with inner expression. Writing, building, and creating with your hands or playing an instrument are all further enhancements when the dynamic equilibrium of this hub is restored. During the writing of this part of the Parinama method, a ride service driver told me that he finds it difficult when passengers don't talk to him, so he restores himself by playing guitar. One of the things that popped up when I was just reading this was I don't like during the Super Bowl, Rihanna's Super Bowl performance, there was the sign language, viral sign language person, and who just like ate it. Like it was like so good. And it just like spoke to the expression of like, what hands can do. So, and that's one of the things I think I mentioned yesterday, which is that the drawings of the hubs for the just kind of the sake of simplicity, I really had originally wanted the outer of the arms and the hands to be 5th hub and the inner to be 4th, but yeah, it just didn't happen. Could have, I guess. I'm not, so perfection. Perfection, not, yeah, leave a little something interesting to explore there on the table. Some, some more room for, I don't know, whatever. See, that's the thing. Okay, so to consciously reclaim our voice and the ability to create ironic, we explore the early behaviors programmed into us. So to consciously reclaim our voice and the ability to create, we explore the early behaviors programmed into us. Cultural, social, familial, and personal values collide as we seek to express our identity in the early years of 5th hub development. Now that we're adults, we examine these factors and consciously reclaim their influences to decide what serves us and what we want to let go of. So when we hold back or conceal what we have to say, our vocal cords become tighter and can be experienced as tension in the shoulders, neck, and jaw, which can become a chronic holding pattern. Flow in this hub is speaking your truth without talking over the truth of another or invading that person's boundary with the overwhelming intensity of noise. The balance we seek to restore is listening to and validating others and of expressing ourselves without invading or causing harm. That's nice. So this hub has much power and voltage. Words are potent with regard to causing intentional and unintentional harm. Yelling and harsh words are used when emotions are overwhelming, and using the shock value of words and their delivery can feel validating and satisfying when they get a response. When this hub's interrupted, the attunement of conversation struggles to synchronize, a continuation of interruptions and adaptations in the second hub. Communication requires a dynamic balance of expression and validation. And if we experience an interruption, we may develop an adaptation that blocks one or the other, and sometimes both. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to bring up too um, is that one, so we're talking in, and we're actually making a little bit of a transition here from techniques and exercises that are primarily physical, where now we're doing things that have, are like are more cerebral, I guess, more intellectual, more contemplative. This we'll get into this in the seventh hub, but I want to bring this down here um, before we reach it. Is that there is, and if this isn't really accessible just yet, it just kind of, I'm just planting a seed here, is that from the physical, from a physical practice, just directing attention to the physical area, bringing attention to the physical sensation of the area without trying to move it or like shift it or anything, and just bringing attention to the nature of it and being with it in a sense and observing it. If you can maintain your attention in a way that is sustained and non-judgmental and just be present with it, that alone can actually, like, you can start to feel shifts that are like, I'd say possibly, if not actually, like with a like deeper accessing a deeper level of release in that particular area. But I'm not going to talk too much more about that. It's something that does naturally arise in this practice. So if it's not attainable, if it's like, yeah, I can't like really do that, just it's okay. Like it'll like that, it becomes something that's possible over time. Because a lot of, there's a lot with like meditation, where you have people say like, "Oh my God, you don't meditate," or, if you don't have time to meditate, that means you need to do it for like all day or whatever. This like all those things. It's like it's funny because it strikes me as like super like aggressive, like these aggressive meditation things, which is like, I sat for this long. Or, if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, it means you need to meditate for 20 minutes kind of stuff, where people love that, like there's something, it's like there are things that just like really draft in, which with like cultural, like sort of like attitudes, like and the adaptations. And one of them is like, yeah, if there's something wrong with you, it means that you need to like really lean into I mean, that's what that links in with, which is like, if you can't do 5 minutes, like, instead of being like, maybe just try to do something a little more achievable. It's like put yourself in an even more impossible, like, relationship with Oh my oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. I could laugh for a long time about that. I'm actually like Oh god, it is so shitty. Okay, but one of the things that will happen as each of the hubs, so as we develop trust, like the fundamental first hub, trust, because physical security is about trust. It's about embodied trust. And one of the fallbacks is to be like, "Yeah, but the world is, blah bitty blah. Like but I have bills to pay. Yes, but but the thing is like this is inside out living, which is that you trust in yourself and you like there just has to, the idea that's like be fearless. It's like the world is uncertain. There are threats to our safety. There is a reality of life. However, what we are actually embodying in terms of our sensibility around that is ultimately like this is where the choice comes in, because it's like how much participation do we like are like how much are we going to participate in that worldview, versus like the sense of like trust. And I will say that without fail, this is something that tends to get resistance initially, and once it's broken through is like is it's a big opening. And some of the stuff that opens this has to do with even knowing, like, really connecting with what you actually want, because there's a lot of conflation in this sense of trust. Like, the trust that you're going to have enough, that you're going to be enough, that you're not under threat all the time, that you really do have what it takes to figure out how to make things work. Like, this kind of fundamental sense of, like, hypervigilance isn't necessary because you'll figure it out. Um and then, and then as like we build greater capacity to feel, and in the second hub, and like literacy, like and this is about really building the container for everything, which is, and I'll just leave it at that, to be able to feel more joy. So most people, like, their issue isn't like they can feel shitty feelings. It's actually about, can you feel more joy? Can you feel more elation? Can you connect with like that feeling of freedom and delight and excitement and, just, and even peace? Like, can you connect to a sustained state of peace in that? And it's very like subtle, like, kinda like, I guess I hate the word, but yumminess. It's terrible. And then, going into your sense of power being originating from the inside, that you can feel this, like your individuality, your sense of personal power, this like naturally radiating component of yourself that is, the lighthouse. The thing about the lighthouse doesn't go around looking for boats to save, it just stands and shines. Like, and that you can feel this where you're not needing power as in terms of it being given to you and granted to you and given to you as respect and admiration, or given to you as the respect and admiration of other people. It's that this is internalized, the sense of, and then, that then in the fourth hub, where it's like the relationship we have with ourselves, like that division, that delight, and that cherished, and all those qualities that we're seeking out, in the five characteristics that of like that are core to like our needs, um to be delighted in, to have somebody interested in what you have to say, and to just find yourself interesting, and to find yourself like to cherish yourself and adore yourself and feel this connection. It's like when someone had said this, and it really resonated with me, is like, when I look at my cat, just anything he does, it's like, like, just the existence of his little hand paws and his little, like, when he's sleeping and whatever he does, and, like, just everything about him, I mean, and then, of course, like, sometimes he's, like, you know, it's whatever, I mean, it's like, it's a he'll be, kinda grouchy or whatever, bratty or whatever, like, do something naughty because he wants some more food or whatever. But it's like that kind of looking at, it's like, "Oh my god," like, you look at, if you have a dog, or if you have, like, that kind of way of, and I'm not using human on purpose, because it's like, this thing of being able to look at something that is just its existence causes this sense of, like, wonder. It's just it's like, "Oh my god, this has" it's like, "Oh, he's like a stuffed animal, he's fur over" like, just that he's funny, it's like his little cat life and that kind of thing. Like, that kind of, like, feeling about yourself that kind of feeling about yourself. And so when we're coming up into the techniques and exercises, each of the building in that hub, and as we build each of those components through the consideration of the formation of it, through understanding the interruptions and stressors that formed our notion of what it is, to see what our patterns are that are arising from that, to just be able to recognize them and have some understanding and compassion, and then having the physical and contemplative practices to work with it just naturally. The capacity to meditate and be still, it becomes more possible, and then the returns and like what that can actually do and create, um like what that phenomenon is like, the becomes a lot more accessible, I'll just say. So, yeah. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so what do we got now? I have one paragraph left. So, okay, the boundary and human right interruptions in this hub are often similar to the second hubs. Blame is placed on others for not being tough enough or being too sensitive. Still, words and sound invade and can cause harm. Parents who constantly criticize their children as they begin to express themselves in their early teens interrupt their right to self expression. As a result, children may protect themselves from listening because they know it can hurt them when they do. A good place to look for interruption is in your behavior patterns that you don't understand, especially those that get labeled as moral shortcomings. Being a bad listener is a good example of this. We can't shut our ears, so we develop other adaptations, like not paying attention. So, yeah, that's actually like it's a pretty good paragraph. Um, yeah, the thing I went to that concert this week that had the bass that just felt like it had absolutely disrupted like my cells. Like I felt there was a quality to like my physical feeling for the next 24 hours that I didn't like. And I didn't like it. It was the final act too. That was like the one that really like kind of was like where I was like, I really um want to get away from this. But it's really topical because it's like we have this thing which is like that words are just like things, like they're just like a word is like, something you'd write on a piece of paper. But it was actually having a physical experience of the fact of like the vibratory quality of how sound actually changes the body, which is, like, and that I had a direct experience with that where I was like, oh, this is negative. And I was having a conversation with a chat online with Kristen, who does um like concert, like does, works in the live music industry. And she'd shared a bunch of things about how like her own experiences and even a few clips about how vibrations change like sand, when you have like different, it's like they have the thing where they've, the vibration starts to create patterns in the sand. And so it's kind of like I realize this is one of those things, like it's like back to the thing with the second hub where it's like, oh, you're being too sensitive, you should be tougher or whatever. But I think I think one of the things too right now is like my I've I'm my exploration of this has made me a bit more malleable in this state right now. So, like, I'm a lot more sensitive to noise, and which is interesting because it's like, who would you think that's a physical thing? But now, like, the volume on my headphones is, like, way down, the volume on my TV is way down. I go to a concert, I'm, like, totally disrupted by it. So, I mean, like, I think that having the boundary, which is a big emphasis in this chapter, is important. Right now, I don't wanna have it because I'm trying to do some, like, exploratory work and processing here. Um, but yeah, it's that it is, and it is delicate. Like, think about, like, what the actual, like, technology in your ears is very delicate. Like, it's really, like, you think about, like, the hammer and anvil, these tiny little, like, bones and villi that actually, like, translate it's, like, really wild if you think about how sensitive the apparatus in this is, the reception apparatus, so it's kind of like, yeah, you can't close your ears, and it's like, so it's, yeah, so, like, the notion of not listening, and I think one of the things I'm finding is, like, that boundary I'd put over it was it actually affected the fact that I had to turn things up higher. Just kind of odd, right? There's something else I wanted to put in here. Hmm. Oh, yeah. So, criticism. So, I wanna revisit something that I'd mentioned like, I think in a reading a couple segments ago, which is using it's the 5th hub thing. It's not in the techniques and exercises, so I'm gonna re-emphasize it here because it's also really, potent reframing mechanism, is to characterize things as "that's for me" or "that's not for me." So instead of, and this is a really great way to start to think about, like, I am building, we're gonna get into this in the next hub and even beyond, which is like, we're building our catalog and our inspiration for the creation of the, like, of what the quality that we want our life to be. And it can even be like the things we want starts out with that. And so one of the blockers of that can be criticism, and, like, as we discussed in the 4th of envy and jealousy. Um, so there's actually, so to cut through that, to cut through the bullshit of, like, like, the moralizing it, like, well, it's there, they bought a car that could have fed 500 families or whatever, like, that kind of stuff, like, where it's like, what good is that? What good is that? You see, a beautiful woman and you go, "Oh, she's a," see, you maybe see that, she's got a sweat stain, or, she's a puppet of the patriarchy or whatever. Just this stuff where it's like, what good does that do? What good does that do? And this is where words, the power, the spell casting of words, it becomes incredibly important here, because what we're doing is we're spell casting against things that actually are pleasant to look at and nice to like imagine. So it's cutting through the bullshit. So it's like, you see something and it's either for you or it's not for you. And it's either part of the world that you want to build for yourself or it's not. So you look at let's say you look at a beautiful woman, and are you going to say, that's not for me? Or are you gonna say, "That's for me. That's for me." That kind of beauty, that kind of aliveness, that gorgeousness, that, style, that kind of, that kind of, like, physical composition. You look at, people's careers, and it's like, for me, a simmering resentment was seeing people that were actually having careers that were in alignment with who they are, that they felt just like you can see it, that they had naturally, organically arising joy and connection and love for the work. And like, I would see that and I would come up with some bullshit. I'd come up with some bullshit about like, well, like they're like, and it's like, no, the quality that I'm looking at, that's for me. 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 And the thing is to look at people who are doing like really, like, I'm not going to get into what isn't for me in this, but it's just that, like, I just want to keep emphasizing this, which is like, instead of like, this is a good way to like break some of the qualities, or some of the reflexes, and as in a very constructive way of like noticing whether you have internalized criticism and looking around the world. I don't want to use a specific story of a person, that it's something that happened recently, and it's the beautiful woman one. But it was like someone I was with pointed this like very unnoticeable thing about like an extraordinarily beautiful woman, and said like, "That's not a nice look." And, and I just wanna say, like, I'm not it's, like, the reason I don't like bringing, like, I'm, like, reluctant like, call specific things out that people might identify, is that I don't it's not anything that anyone's, like, doing wrong, so to speak, and it's also, when it's happening, it's not my job to educate a person and become their teacher. I'm not their parent. I'm not their parent. They're doing what they're doing, and that is, like, absolutely, like, not mine to interrupt unless I'm asked. Unless it's asked of me, right? And in this case, it wasn't, and most of the time it is not, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem observing it and finding it interesting. Also, well, also, like, that's not for me, is for somebody to do something and me to feel like I have to correct them. That's not for me. I'm out of that. I'm out of that, yeah, that's not for me. That's not it. That's not it. So yeah, that's for me. That's for me. I mean, it's interesting because I just want to talk on this. I want to do one more round on this, which is like the idea that it's somehow superior to point someone out. So, okay, let's talk about like some of the kind of noxious behavior of this like these like uber wealthy people that are like so talk about like say like Elon Musk, and so who's just boring, but like I just think it's kind of boring, but boring literally and figuratively, and it like seems like he's really lost, and I don't know, and really like a lot of conviction about whatever, but instead of the thing about moralizing him is just, it's like, that's not for me. Like, it's not for me. It's not for me. If I had that much wealth, what, like, so the wealth, like, sure, like, that's for me. I'd like, sure, but not really. That doesn't feel like his integrity. I don't really want what he has. But it's just more like the thing that's for me is like actually the antithesis of him, which is like, I would love the opportunity to make an impact in the world where you're actually like unleashing human potential, like at a like on a global scale where every human is like accessing this, so what we're talking about here, which is experiencing this like trust, greater capacity to feel personal power, like cherishing and loving themselves, like self-expression, like to get that, like you'd get this like utopia in a sense if people could, if every human being could be given, be able to access this. I don't know if every human is capable of it, but um that's beyond my pay grade to know that. um but so it's kind of like, yeah, that's not for me in that way, but not in a way where it's like it's just, and I'm not going to spend like a lot of time thinking about someone like him, and like where there's like my thoughts like don't change anything material, and all they do is like about his life, about the world. They just make me have this kind of opinion that's like a bit pedantic and like shitty, versus like this shift to be like, what is for me, what is for me, like what's the, and like as like an aspect of what about my life can I aspire towards, and what about um yeah, like, what about that can I turn into something that actually I have a chance to, like, act in, like, like, behave and act in? Uh, this is actually, it could be a much longer discussion, but it would be a lot better if it wasn't just me talking to myself. I'd love to have this conversation um, live. Well, it is live technically, but with others. So anyhow, so I think that's it for now. I know that's it for now. Next, so for the techniques and exercise, I guess maybe I'm going to talk a little bit about what's to come. So in this section, we're going to talk about communication. This is a nice one. So like setting up a conversation, listening and validation, speaking. I'm going to do the elevator pitch, which is an interesting thing in here, which just really actually has to do with, well, we'll talk about when we get there. Voice, which is, tone, pitch, pattern interrupting and tone, harmony versus discord, creating, journaling, affirmations. Oh, we'll do some affirmations. Oh, that's cool. Those are good ones. It's kind of, I'm just scanning them right now. If you have the book, this is like around 209. And then there is some charge and discharging, but we're not doing it with like muscular stuff necessarily. We'll do the VU. And then making noise. Like, so make noise. Yeah, so this might actually, throwing hands, get off my back. Okay, so maybe there's some muscular stuff. Oh my God. God, why can't I stop lying in this? It's literally like, it's not even, it's just like a version of lying, which is you just don't tell the truth because of like ignorance, which isn't defensible because I wrote this book. There's not much of a defense. It's like I didn't know. So yeah, I think maybe, you know what? The thing I was talking about at the top here, I think this section might actually be a unifying factor for the what I was just saying felt kind of disjointed. So we'll see. I'll let you be the judge. You can tell me. So anyway, as always, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you so much. If this call, if you're here, if you've made it this far, in even in these 43 minutes, I like, one of the things is that I would prompt you to really sense the part of you that is connecting to this, and really, really honor it and understand that it's probably felt, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get more into it, but just that, I'm going to leave it at that. Honor thyself. Okay. So that's it for today. And I will see you for communication. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more articulate. We'll see. Okay. Bye for now.